With the release of Scarlet and Violet, the new gimmick Pokémon of this game are the Paradox Pokémon. These are basically the ancestors or descendants of existing Pokémon, with a major focus on version exclusivity. Scarlet gives the player a glimpse into the past, where monstrous beasts and angrier mushrooms thrived. But the focus of this video is the future variants introduced in Violet, and these are honestly kinda disappointing. Like, don't get me wrong, most of them look cool, but they're just robots. I get we don't have a lot of deep lore on the future, since it's the future, but there's plenty of futuristic sci-fi concepts that aren't robots. Think mutated post-apocalypse, or far future speculative evolution. There's so much more than just beep boop. Beep boop boop bop. Not to mention, each of their names just begins with iron, and they all just become monochrome silver when shiny. Overall, they kind of feel like an afterthought. They're simply imposters of the originals. And if all calculations are correct, Pastmate should have just made a terrible and overused Among Us joke. Oh. I guess we're doing this again. Right you are. I figured you could use some help from a guy who already did the research. I mean, sure, but they're just kind of robots. There isn't really much to explore. Non-floob sense. There's tons of different kinds of robots out there. It's not like one size fits all. There's bots for building machines, providing life-saving healthcare, yelling at you on X en masse. So, even if they are from the future, each has their own rich lore and inspirations taken from various robots of both pop fiction and reality. I'm not too sure about that rich lore part, though. I mean, have you seen their dex entries? Yeah, they're certainly lackluster compared to other Pokémon, but the dex entries aren't our only source of info on these machines. If you visit the Academy's library, you can find some more information from the Violet book and paranormal occult magazines scattered about. Admittedly, though, those sources aren't verified, but neither are half of the Pokedex entries. Plus, I'm sure there's plenty of mysteries that are going to be solved or answered in the DLC, but what we do have is enough to form a solid diagnosis on them. Let's begin with this one. The first Paradox Pokémon Violet players are introduced to is the quaking Earth Titan Iron Treads, a highly modified version of the Pokémon you know as Donphan. It keeps the recognizable elephant elements like the tusks and ears, and I especially like what they did with the trunk. It's a piece of tank treads. And while the Pokémon itself doesn't roll around like Donphan, the trunk curls across the body, creating the treads to do the rolling instead. Its Pokédex even claims it travels so fast that it leaves a trail of its path permanently scorched into the earth. And that's the most important aspect to its design. If you remove the bottom part of a tank, it resembles the body shape of Iron Treads. Just roll out the turret and give it two main guns to represent the tusks, and voila! A really scuffed version of a war machine elephant. And the Pokédex backs up this tank connection, but of course it could just represent a futuristic war machine in general. I guess now that you mention it, plenty of sci-fi franchises love making sci-fi wheel machines, like the monocycle from Wolfenstein. It's technically an old invention that never caught on, but plenty of sci-fi shows bring them up, especially in the context of alien worlds where I guess they did catch on. Even the iconic Star Wars has a couple of these. But how are you supposed to see when you're driving one of these? I guess some of them sit their dudes on the side. Now, considering this is the Paradoxmon they made the Titan, I could also throw the Q-ship from Infinity War into that mix, a UFO manned by Thanos' army. Trust me, we'll get into aliens in a moment, but I don't think there's an LGM crawling around inside of Iron Treads or anything. Instead, this Paradox Pokémon is possibly a drone. I can see that. Drones are remote-operated robots, either by a controller or navigation programs like GPS. In either case, a human pilot is not physically traveling with it. These days, most drones are aerial vehicles, but the definition includes any remote-controlled autonomous vehicle. Most people think of like Amazon delivery drones when you mention the word, but the militaries of the world also use drones. Unmanned combat aerial vehicles resemble what you'd expect an aircraft to look like. The only difference is that there's no people in there, making them significantly more compact and less complicated to make. Thus, almost all warfare in some versions of the future is done through drones. Drones maximize reward while minimizing risk. If the drone dies, at least no humans die, though of course this is assuming it's a future where human life still has value, but either way, worst case, your machine gets blown up with no casualties for relatively cheap. Now, that may be what it costs to house and feed 1,200 homeless people for a year, and it gets blown up instantly, but context. That's also a Big Mac in my time. Regardless, while on the topic of war, elephants have been used in many battles during the early years of human conflict. War elephants were used in classical India, China, Persia, Rome, and even Alexander the Great himself owned 150 in his armada. A large chainmail cover would be placed over the elephants to protect it from weaponry, as they proved to be effective before the time of firearms. Their large size meant they could barrel through opposing forces' defenses, while multiple soldiers could ride atop the beast and attack from above with bows and spears. However, once guns were invented, it was pretty much game over for them. Suddenly, these unstoppable forces of nature became extremely slow and large targets, so their use quickly died out. But their legacy lives on. Media still uses war elephants in fantasy settings like Lord of the Rings and Adventure Time, and in some ways, Iron Treads is like the ultimate war machine. It incorporates the earliest technology and the most advanced, so it's prepared for any conflict throughout all of history. It's definitely more than just a war machine, though. Remove the treads and tuck the legs in like they do, and it's clearly a spherical robot, loved for their great mobility, even without anti-gravity. Haro from Gundam even has the same sort of ears as Iron Treads. But again, sci-fi has taken it to an extreme, and you can find many examples of hovering spherical robots and such in the context of aliens, too. Perhaps the shape got this association because of our first satellite, Sputnik. People at the time looked at that and thought, that is the aesthetic of the future. And heck, aside from the flying saucer UFO style, spheres are like the second most common. All great points about Iron Treads. It makes sense to follow up with Iron Moth. Right, according to its dex entry, this Pokemon resembles an unknown object described in a paranormal magazine as a UFO sent to observe humanity. Notice that it emphasizes it's an alien ship versus an alien weapon. The magazine clarifies it can attack people, but its primary purpose is to observe, which is typical for UFO reports, just hovering there, not attacking or anything, just watching. Like a galactic safari. And here we see humans still fighting over melanin and hormones, hence our lack of contact. Alien surveillance drones are another huge trope. Don't want to fight the humans until you know everything about them. Or maybe they do just see us the same way we see animals in nature documentaries, because they're just so much more advanced than us. But either way, I like how Iron Moth's wings resemble space telescope satellites, like especially the recent James Webb. And that's very fitting of it being an observer, right? And considering Iron Moth's body shape. A moth? Yes, but the Black Knight satellite also comes to mind. A mysterious object observed by NASA within Earth's atmosphere in 1998. Nobody knows what it is or why it's there, but it first appeared at Earth 13,000 years ago and sends out mysterious messages of unknown origins. We also know it's made out of a material stronger than diamonds and has never been replicated on Earth. To this day, the satellite continues to watch over the Earth, revealing little about what it is planned. Literally a one-to-one with Iron Moth's Scarlet dex entry. Right, but that's all fake. It's just one of those more popular UFO conspiracy theories, but like, the only real thing is the image. It's certainly spooky and mysterious looking, but then you realize it's just a folded up thermal blanket that was lost by the ISS. However, NASA has addressed the rumors and came to the conclusion that the conspiracy is actually a collection of a bunch of different alien stories that got tied to this one image through the grapevine. A common occurrence in tons of UFO conspiracies, but I suppose Iron Moth is sort of a representation of what the Black Knight would be if it really were alien. Also, I love its size difference. Look at that. It's amazing. But actually, this isn't even the only UFO it takes inspiration from. During World War II, American aircraft pilots reported large glowing orbs trailing their jets at night, dubbed Foo Fighters. That's what the band is named after. These orbs were believed to have been made of fire and would fly in formations as if operated by intelligence, motivated to toy with the pilot. Yet, whenever confronted, the orbs would simply vanish into thin air, and they could not be shot down or directly interacted with in any way. And this separation goes both ways. No hostility was shown by these objects either, which ties them a bit closer to Iron Moth's behavior even more. Now, you may be expecting me to say Foo Fighters were in the same boat as the Black Knight, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Other countries have also observed these UFOs. In Europe, they called them Kraut fireballs, and German forces have had sightings as well. So with so many sightings, some scientists think they are indeed real, but rather than interdimensional aliens partially coming into our dimension, They are a natural phenomenon, similar to St. Elmo's fire, which is a rare weather phenomenon. It is just more in the sky. And to this day, we're still not exactly sure what they are, but this is definitely where this Pokémon gets its fire type from. Aside from it being a Volcarona anyway.
Now what about the poison?
That's definitely odd. The majority of moths are not venomous or even poisonous by the time they become moths, that is, anyway.
Right. Metamorphosis.
Moths start their lives out as caterpillars or worms, and many of these are in fact poisonous and even venomous, which includes the main one Larvesta is based on, the worm of the sycamore tussock moth. But most worms lose this trait when they become moths, but some still carry some poison with them. Never enough to cause serious damage to humans unless you ate it for some reason, but still enough to irritate the skin if they just crawl on you.
And then, it being a robot from the future, that could just simply imply that it's made of poisonous metals, of which there are plenty.
Arsenic comes to mind. It can come in a bright orangey yellow like Iron Moth's wings too, and for a time, it was one of the most common ingredients in pesticides. It's still in use today, but not as heavily, specifically because it turns out moths have a slight resistance to it. They eat it up. Give me the poison! And now it's in their bodies, and they are totally fine with that. But then a bird or a spider later eats them, and whoopsie-daisy, now there's a load of arsenic in the food chain. There's even an instance of a large gathering of bogong moths living in a cave together. It rained, water poured out of the cave, and washed a ton of arsenic from the moths and their droppings out into the wilderness outside the cave, killing all the plants. Because it's also a great herbicide.
It's poison. It just kills everything. And think of the aliens from Florga Dwamba.
What?
Oh, right. They haven't made contact yet.
Huh.
But it's a media trope too. Aliens that live in or breathe things that are poisonous to us. Heck, xenomorph blood is acid to us, or vice versa. Things that are fine for us being poisonous to them, like oxygen. Thus, them being merely observers for quite some time, sending observational satellites to watch us from a safe distance.
I like how Iron Moth's satellite wings also resemble solar panels to capture the sun's energy, hence it retaining the fire type. But also, all 6 of these could combine and form an image of the sun, which is absolutely perfect for a futuristic Volcarona with its sun mythology and all. And even though the bug type is gone now, bugs are still an important part of robot and computer technology.
Ah, null pointer exceptions. Software bugs.
Oh, yeah. And fun fact, they're called bugs because all the way back in 1947, Harvard was building an early computer called Mark II. It was just a relay calculator, reporting trajectories of artillery missiles, but for some reason, its calculations were always slightly off. But after looking through it for potential repairs, they found one dead moth lodged into one of the relays, and sure enough, its math was perfect after they removed it. Thus, us calling computer errors bugs.
Just wait until you get a nanomachine infestation.
I'll probably die before then, but now that we've covered 2 aliens from beyond the stars, surely the next future Paradoxmon will be Iron Hands, who's just kind of a guy without arms. Hey, does Rayman become like a proper franchise again in the future?
Who?
Oh. Well, in-game, the Occulture magazine explains that Iron Hands was born when a great athlete became mortally wounded, but thanks to the advancements of future technology, they were transformed into a cyborg and kept alive. Cyborgs are biological creatures whose bodies and abilities have been modified through mechanical and technological advancements.
We call them androids.
Well, good for you, you're wrong.
And it wouldn't be the first time a human turned into a Pokémon. Though, maybe this mystery athlete isn't a person, but rather is just a Hariyama. Maybe they were dying out because of future pollutants.
We've got a lot of those.
And now as a cyborg, it's been gifted floating hands, which is perhaps the best body modification it could have possibly received because Hariyama itself is based on a sumo wrestler. The sport involves 2 individuals engaging in full-body wrestling with the goal of pushing the opponent outside of the circular arena. As such, it's pretty much impossible to fight from a distance, otherwise you'd be inviting the other fighter to chase you down and build up speed and momentum. So, the best strategy is to stay close and push. That is, unless your hands happen to be detached. Suddenly, a great disadvantage is now a massive strength. The hands can push without the threat of the user being pushed themselves. All advantages, no weaknesses.
It's a lot like real robot fighting sports, which we have legitimately in my time, but your primitive attempts at it work too. Both in the forms of boxing and sumo, like pushing each other out of the ring, which is literally called robo-sumo.
Yeah, and the glowing hands were seemingly an odd choice for me at first, but then I remembered it's fighting electric type, and it learns plenty of electric moves, and considering the way it attacks like a sumo slap, it's sort of like a defibrillator, sending big jolts of electricity through them. Almost like the burning finger attack that Gundams use, but more electric. Heck, a load of anime mecha can launch their hands. That's a huge trope too. And while on the anime trope note, it's also like when a character punches or slaps so fast that there appears to be several hands floating around them. E-Honda is a perfect example of this, and come to think of it, it was the Honda company who made the first humanoid robots, Asimo.
Oh, here's a fun thought for you. Think about chess engines, highly sophisticated AI that can process thousands of chess moves and determine the best move to make next. When they first started popping up, they weren't very great, but now it's pretty much impossible to beat one, even for chess grandmasters.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yep, robots take over many sports down the line. And look at Asimo or the Boston Dynamics robots. Far from perfect now, but still seeing lots of progress. And also consider the Special Olympics, sports for the differently abled. In the future, might there be Cyborg Olympics? Sports for those who are cybernetically enhanced? It wouldn't be fair to have them in the same competition as non-modified humans, but it's also not fair to exclude them entirely. And where does that line get drawn? A dude with 2 full-blown robot legs? How about a guy with all robot limbs and a brain implant? How about a full-on robot with a brain inside of it?
What about just straight up a robot with no organic parts holding it back? I mean, we already have that, but they're just still kind of... They're still learning.
Iron Hands is a representation of what a perfect sumo wrestler would look like. Remember, Iron Hands is a cyborg, which is defined as a person whose physical abilities are extended beyond normal human limitations by mechanical elements built into the body. It is still a biological creature at its core, though. It's the only future paradox with organic components, so in some ways, even as technology advances, humanity, or I guess, Pokemanity, still reigns supreme. Oh right, this one's technically biological too. But it's complicated.
But before getting to that, we should talk about its name first. I mean, out of all of the Paradox Pokemon, this is the only one whose name deserves some sort of explanation. Like, Iron Hands, pretty self-explanatory. What is a Jugulis?
That what me grandpop called this?
What?
It jug you listen to. Out of tune like me breath.
How did you get here?
Sponsor power. It called to me.
Oh yeah, this video is sponsored by Holzkern, an Austrian team who collides the worlds of the past and future to make some unique and amazing watches, handbags, sunglasses, and jewelry out of natural materials like wood and stone, but with the precise human engineering and clockwork of the future.
Ancient clock really was most complex. Seems like stone on stone, but really uses ballet of solar system to tell time. But these watch look much nicer.
Okay, Lockstin, here, look at their selection of impressively intricate wooden watches.
They take tree and make it tell time. Future engineering. All tree and stone have unique natural lines and beauty, so no 2 pieces look the same. And is that a stone slate handbag? Me never seen such thing. Me be talk of town it had.
It's true, and watches, jewelry, sunglasses, uni-cases, all made from natural materials, maintaining their grain, marbling, and iridescence. Oh, it's so pretty. It's no wonder that each piece makes for an excellent gift.
Me speechless, truly. How me repay you?
You can finish the sponsor bit.
See, me do. I definitely encourage you to peruse their selection of goodies using the link at the top of the description box below. And if you use the code LOCKSTIN15, you will get 15% off of your purchase. Oh, me head upside down. Still true though, that do sound like good deal. Even if jug you listen to not fit in bag. Alas, me still posh swank.
Jugulis isn't technically a real word.
No, it real. Here.
unless you count Latin. In short, it's derived from jugulum, which means neck in Latin. So really it's iron neck, or necks. Straightforward, but not nearly as catchy as Jugulis. And of all of the Paradox Pokemon, this one probably has the worst design. Don't get me wrong, it looks amazing, just like Hydreigon, but that's the thing. It's just kinda Hydreigon. If you blurred both of these Pokemon next to each other and asked me which is which, I probably couldn't do it. And if you could, just because Iron Jugulis's mane is significantly more neon, if I dimmed the saturation, you got nothing. But regardless, there's a pretty big reason for this. Clearly, Hydreigon's 3 heads are a reference to the Hydra, a mythical multi-headed dragon monster from Greek mythology, but what business does it have becoming a robot? Not much, as it turns out. The main reference here seems to be good old Mecha King Ghidorah, one of the main antagonists from the Godzilla franchise. Unlike other Hydras that typically have 9 heads, this one specifically has 3 as well, making it fit for a Mecha Hydreigon. And the sheer number of Godzilla references in Pokemon is only growing each and every gen, so...
Well, technically, calling it a mecha isn't correct. This thing's origins are strange. By your standards. It is said that it is born when a Hydreigon fell in love with a robot, and just like Mousehold, the evil robot thing just showed up one day.
Oh! So it's canon then that in the future, the Pokemon world has diddly doodly robots for Pokemon?
Peanut in robot!
I'll bring him back later, don't worry. But if it's a combination of organic matter and machine fused through unholy matrimony, this would make Iron Jugulis a xenobot, a synthetic life form designed by computers and built by combining different biological tissues. Scientists still can't agree whether they're robots, living organisms, or something different entirely, though. And despite how crazy sci-fi that sounds, they aren't. You've actually built a few xenobots of your own by your time. I guess not you personally, you're not smart enough for that. Though right now they aren't anything spectacular, just a few stem cells harvested from frog embryos, combined to form moving objects. This movement is achieved through heart muscle cells that are capable of expanding through contractions, propelling the mass as a result. However, despite being less than a millimeter in length, they've already been designed to walk, swim, push and carry objects, and even organize crumbs into piles.
Perhaps that's why Iron Jugulis looks so similar to Hydreigon. It's unfinished. Maybe the robot in the room with Hydreigon scanned it and started the process of making one itself. Sure, a murderous dragon monster is a step up from glorified Roombas, but compared to other future paradoxes, it's clearly lagging behind. This thing was just born. That might just also be why its base stats are lower than Hydreigon's. Though, other counterparts experience the same thing, so maybe not. A fun fact I love is that thanks to interviews, we know Beta's Vilas was already a mecha dragon on its own, originally, having actual tank treads and stuff, but then they realized robot Pokemon would be kinda dumb, and now we have an actual robot-ish Hydreigon.
Neat. So next up would be this thing.
Oh, it's kinda cute!
Nerd.
Oh, I'm taking this one. This one's clearly here because of nostalgia. Hisui and Paldea gave so much love to Johto through regional variants and new evolutions, and the Santa Birdie Delibird was always deserving of something more. Also, I love how this thing is technically the only past paradox in Violet, as it supposedly came from an ancient civilization. Think about the Star Wars thing. It's future sci-fi tech, but it takes place a long, long time ago. Or maybe this blurb about it from the past is from the perspective of someone in the distant future, and we're the ancient civilization. Or maybe this has to do with the real-world, hyper-advanced ancient civilization, Atlantis. I mean, we know from data mining the game's code, the region is codenamed Atlantis, so...
Well, why don't we ask someone who knows the past?
Oh, where me at?
Hello again, past paradox me. Tell me, do you recognize this thing?
Bird.
I can't believe it. He knows. That's incredible.
Nerd.
Well, can you tell me what secrets it holds?
I don't know. To me, just look like soulless embodiment of postmodernist capitalist Christmas. Move and look like creepy animatronic Santa. He substitute gift bag with presents for good little boys and girls for cheap snow globe you don't really want but are scammed into buying and break easy because cheap material so corporation can raise profit margin by less than 1%. It's greed incarnate.
Well, there goes my love for it, and my childhood innocence.
Robot Penguin is animatronic like Freddy Five Night. He not have free will of own, only move off pre-programmed path and 2 AA battery. That's why it fall apart when fate and look cheaply made. It's simple type of robot to make.
Oh, I'm impressed. Pretty much got it. It's an embodiment of mechanical Christmas. That snow globe on its back operates like a snow machine, using it as a form of propulsion to skate around on its snow ski feet. But the Christmas connections don't end there. Its head pops off like a jack-in-the-box, and it marches around like a little wind-up toy. 2 Christmas classics. But the LED lights and general digital elements on the Pokémon also incorporate newer popular gifts, which are mostly just electronic.
Oh, remember the iDog from the early 2000s? Oh, I wanted one so bad. And I remember thinking it was the most futuristic thing in the world.
It certainly incorporates that sleek Y2K futuristic style everything had going on back then. How fitting that the oldest future paradox would incorporate the past's ideas of what the future would look like.
Come to think of it, while I wouldn't exactly describe Edo Japan as ancient, it does kind of make me think of Netsuke. Kimono didn't have pockets, so instead people carried sagemono, essentially small hard purses hung by cords. And then to fasten those cords together and keep it closed up, wealthier people used Netsuke, little statuettes that fastened them together. And while they could depict anything, birds were extremely common. And what is Delibird, if not a bird that holds a pocket? Now, Iron Bundle is an artificial bird that holds a pocket on a cord, just like a Netsuke.
Oh, big stretch me bored. Cartoon you should click button on its stomach. Will probably play music like iDoggy thingy.
Oh, okay.
Nut nut. Nut nut. Nut 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 nut.
Unexpected error occurred. System rebooting.
Yeah, this isn't nostalgic at all.
Oh, it worked.
Did you summon this thing?
Yes, this is Iron Thorns. Cool, isn't it? I never would have thought we'd bring back dinosaurs in the future, but I guess seeing is believing. It's kinda like the opposite of Sandy Shocks in a way. 2 electric-type Pokémon misplaced on the timeline, but continue to exist anyways. They even inhabit the same rocky cliff environment in Area Zero. It's no coincidence in my book. And I, for one, am glad they brought Iron Thorns into the game as, in a way, it's Iron Thorns 2.0.
Oh yeah, in Black and White 2, there was an area in the game called Pokestar Studios that let you star in your own movies. It's one of the only times in the games you can fight non-Pokemon in battle. Demonic doors, robots, aliens, a giant woman, for some reason, and of course, MT, the Mecha Tyranitar. It's the most well-known of these. It's basically a prototype for Iron Thorns 2 once you think about it. Though, a black MT known as MT2 also exists, so I guess that makes Iron Thorns MT3 then, huh?
This is clearly a reference to Mecha Godzilla, a giant mecha created by either humanity or aliens, depending on which movie you're watching, to eliminate all kaiju on Earth, especially Godzilla.
Wait, no, Tyranitar is based on Bemular. Look at this, we did a whole video on it 2 years ago. And even Bemular has a mecha variant. Did you learn nothing? Oh, is that what I used to look like? Cringe, I'm out. Is that... what happens to my body? Where does my body go?
Axel's right, you did do a whole video on Godzilla and kaiju references in Pokemon, which heavily featured the vanilla Tyranitar line, describing how Bemular from the Ultraman franchise actually is a much better fit for the Pokemon's design than Godzilla.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Link here.
Oh, how do you do that? Oh!
I don't know how he keeps getting back. But to quickly apply Bemular to Iron Thorns, the Ultraman 2011 reboot redesigned this character from a scaly, draconic kaiju to a mysterious mecha humanoid. 2 completely different design directions that kinda meet perfectly in the middle with Iron Thorns. So yes, in part, this paradox is a representation of the fusion between both Bemulars. But it's definitely fair to say there's a lot more Godzilla references thrown into the mix this time around. Really, I think this reference speaks for itself. Even the name, MT, is a reference to Mechagodzilla's codename, MG, and Iron Thorns is just a more advanced version of the original MT design, ironing out all those rough edges and joints for a sleeker, futuristic-eared more design. We still mess up grammar in the future.
I don't even feel like I need to say it just looks more advanced, because look at it. I mean, it even gets glowing future spikes on its back, which I guess is where the Thorns part of its name comes in. These green crystals shoot out during battle and start to flow with the starry liquid seen in every other Future Paradox Mon. They are almost like a reference to fusion cores or power cores in all sorts of robots and machines in media, typically an indicator that someone or something is powering up or unleashing the ultimate combo. The cores start to overheat, or, they are about to, so they stick out and they help it cool off all better as it glows with magical future power. They're common weak points in powerful robotic or armored enemies in games too, which is why they tend to sink into the main armored body afterwards whenever they're not overheating. Gotta protect them. Though, they also make me think of just glowy bits in a lot of mecha anime that just start materializing more mecha that grants the mecha new ability, It's like charging a huge attack, or extending wings, or just glowing out the back with insane power.
Iron Thorns is advanced, even among Paradox standards. After all, it's supposedly from 1 billion years in the future. Beyond me, even. MG also has retractable missile launchers and rocket boosters that come out of its back, even classically, and its missiles stick into Godzilla like thorns or stingers even.
Alright, but why such a big focus on those anyways? I know the Thorns are cool looking, but unlike regular Tyranitar, this thing learns pin missile. And I don't know, Thorns? Pins? Game Freak really likes those Thorns for some reason, and this isn't the first time they've done it. Mega Tyranitar looks even basically just kind of the same. The Thorns explode across its entire body. The Pokédex even says its back splits right open. I just think something's missing here.
Well, the spines could be a reference to a real-life phenomenon called induced metamorphosis. Basically, in certain species of amphibians and insects, humans can create an artificial environment that forces organisms to reach adulthood faster, or even reach a life stage not normally possible within nature. The best example comes from the axolotl. Normally, these salamanders will remain submerged in ponds and lakes during their early life, but eventually make the voyage to land and live the rest of their lives. But these little frilly axolotls never make that journey, and technically remain baby larvae their entire lives. However, this adult stage is still baked into their DNA, and under the right circumstances, can be unlocked through hyper-precise environment changes only achievable within a lab. This is what a terrestrial axolotl really looks like. Not gonna lie, it's so much less cute without the pink hair, and so they should stay this way, as this induced metamorphosis is actually terrible for the animal's livelihood, with most seeing a major decrease in quality of life and passing away shortly afterwards. An extremely painful, forced transformation. That's just Mega Evolution, isn't it? So am I suggesting that Iron Thorns is some sort of secret Mega Evolution? Maybe? No? But it is a different form of induced metamorphosis, and thus has some similarities. Think about Roaring Moon and Mega Salamence, there's similarities there too. Or think about Mega Gengar and Gigantamax Gengar. Both of these phase through the ground and gain spikes, so it seems most extra evolutions made to Pokémon lead to overlapping observations in their appearance. And for Tyranitar, that's bigger and better back spikes. These ones retract too, kinda similar to how bee stingers act. And the Tyranitar line has always had this weird insect undertone to it, as Larvitar and Pupitar are literally named after the life stages of insects. And remember, it learns Pin Missile now. A move held almost exclusively by Pokémon with stingers or poisonous barbs.
Yeah, come to think of it, those being like stingers could explain this new electric typing. It works similarly to a taser perhaps. It shoots some needles and unleashes electricity between them. Yeah. Plus, how do you keep a giant mecha functional in the first place? You need to have a crazy power supply. That's part of the reason it needs those energy cores in the first place, is just to keep it moving. All advanced technologies require a power supply of some sort, whether it be a generator or battery. There's just no way getting around that. And it could also be a reference to Godzilla's nuclear powers. Whenever he fires off his atomic breath attack, his back spines shine in a blue aura that also somewhat resembles electricity. Pokemon's very own Zekrom produces blue electricity, so non-yellow lightning is not a foreign concept to Pokemon. And perhaps then, this energy requirement is also why the rock typing sticks around too. In some iterations of the Godzilla storyline, he gains his powers from the energy of uranium ore found in rocks. Whenever you think of a radioactive element, uranium usually always comes to mind first and foremost. And we use uranium to power all sorts of things, so Maybe that's why it likes to hang out in the rockier parts of Area Zero. It's desperately hunting for more uranium that it requires to keep functioning. Also, this new type combo means it loses the dark type, which makes sense for a full-on robot. It has no free will. How can it be dark or evil? Iron Jugulis keeps that evil type because it's theoretically still partially organic as a Xenobot.
Huh? Is this not evil? This, my friend.
But Iron Thorns? If it is piloted by a psychopath, sure, but if it is piloted by a guy who runs a charitable pizzeria?
It's used to flatten pizza pies before putting them in the oven.
Exactly, that's the opposite of evil.
Ah, I do love me a locust pizza.
Me love locust.
Ah, well then perhaps the three of us are more similar than I initially thought. We find harmony in consuming insects.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's only one left, right?
Correct. Iron Valiant, a robotic mix of two Pokémon. Even in-game, the Occult magazine mentions it is similar to both Gardevoir and Gallade, but take a look at that dress and those arm blades. Yes, it's specifically based on their mega forms.
Again, just like the similarities some other paradoxes have with megas.
And it's typing now. It took Fairy from Gardevoir and Fighting from Gallade, the only Pokémon with this combination actually. A very neat accomplishment, but a failure based on the goals according to that magazine. It's supposedly a robot built as the product of a mad scientist's effort to create the most powerful psychic Pokémon. And that shortcoming is probably a reference to what type of robot it's based on. It's a bit of an evil AI.
Evil? But no dark.
Because it's also a failure. But again, the magazine mentions that it's a cruel Pokémon, willing to take its shining blade and cut down anyone confronting it without hesitation. More specifically, it represents the science fiction side of AI. As we all know, AI is super complex, but under the hood, it's just really complicated math. Nothing that special.
Oh yeah, like if I had an AI designed to identify fruit and I showed it a blueberry, it would just detect the color and the shape of the fruit, compare it to other fruits it's seen, and it tells me that it thinks it's a blueberry.
Great.
Look, don't get me wrong, there's some incredibly impressive AIs out there, but that's because coders spent hours and hours supplying said bot with information. You have to. That's what your picture captures are for. Ooh, computer, try that one.
Okay, don't panic. You got this. Let's take a look at the color. Red. And its shape is round with a point on top, similar to a teardrop. But hang on, it's bobbing its head every 2 seconds in a clear 4-4 rhythmic pattern, so it could be a mouse. But we're in the southern hemisphere in summer with only a 5% chance of rain today. Mice hate getting wet, so it's probably not that. Not to mention, mice are endangered here, somehow. Though lizards appreciate sunlight, it can be found in this area of the world. Though judging on the heat signature, it seems to be a warm-blooded creature. Come on, you can do this, computer. That's me, the computer. Think. It is a grape.
See, isn't that ridiculous? To get a fairly functioning AI, you need to pump it full of different scenarios and how to respond to each. The scientist clearly didn't do all that. All he did was say, if it attacks, attack back. If it looks like it's gonna attack, you attack first. Boom! I'm done. I'm taking my 15. So no, Terminator-style AI takeovers aren't really going to be a thing anytime soon. By your time, because you can crash their system by turning your shirt inside out, or wearing your socks on your hands, or even just wearing this cheesy sleeve.
Actually, recently while training, the US Marines beat a military robot just by hiding in cardboard boxes like Snake.
See? So even if Iron Valiant looks like a dangerous foe, its brain is really, really bare bones, which is why its movements are so sparse and stiff. And that's really the main problem with Iron Valiant. It clearly has the hardware to carry out these commands with those arm blades capable of transforming into a double-sided halberd, but there's absolutely no free will or emotion behind those eyes. You can't take a Pokemon line whose Pokedex classifications are the Feeling Pokemon and the Emotion Pokemon and the Embrace Pokemon and turn it into a stone-cold violent killer. It's implied the Gardevoir line gets its psychic powers from the emotional bond it creates with its trainer. So you can't really replicate those powers by robbing it of its humanity.
Oh, don't worry about that. The internet did that a long time ago. Still, it looks pretty cool though, even if it is just kinda the same as the rest of them.
Yes, Iron Valiant is just kind of the same, and honestly it has the least going for it out of all of the Paradox Pokemon, besides being a fusion. but that's because the design was unfinished. Enter Iron Leaves, the Paradox Pokemon of Virizion. Design-wise, this one might be even lamer than Iron Jugulis, though. It's just Virizion with those same LED eyes, but there is one cool aspect to its design. When it attacks, 3 beams of light come out of its forehead and neck thingies. Clearly a reference to the 3 sacred swords. But aside from that, it just doesn't really move.
Almost like another Paradox Pokemon we talked about.
Exact-a-rilladupu! Just like the rest of the future Pokemon, this one too serves a unique robotic role. I believe Iron Leaves is just a support mount, specifically for Iron Valiant. Not only do their color schemes match, but so too does the move only as necessary demeanor, as if both were created by the same inventor.
Now that you mention it, one of the main areas we see artificial intelligence being used is within self-driving vehicles. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, this will still be one of the main areas where there's going to be a lot of growing pains. Sure, it's nice that 9,999 times out of 10,000 the AI recognizes Grandma crossing the road and stops the vehicle, but the only thing people care about is that one time. Maybe one day Grandma can safely go to the grocery store without fear of being the latest news story of a Tesla malfunction. But especially right now, it's comforting to see that AI can't do everything a person can.
That is until the ultimate real-life Iron Leaves comes out, the ultimate AI battle vehicle of the future. It can recognize every Grandma, but it conscientiously chooses to avoid them or not. The ultimate mount, designed to assist the ultimate bodyguard of the future. Even those energy swords look incredibly similar to Valiant's Halberd, and look, there's that psychic typing the scientist was after. Iron Valiant isn't a failure, it's just incomplete. Just plop it on top of this steed and boop! There you go. The ultimate psychic type Pokemon. I love a happy ending about a killing machine reaching its full potential.
Yeah. But sadly, this is probably closer to fantasy than reality. We know next to nothing about this Pokemon. It has no dex entries, no in-game lore. The only thing we know is that it somewhat resembles the Swords of Justice fusion sketch in the Violet book, and even still, not really. Maybe with the DLC we'll see this fusion come to be, but isn't it a bit odd? It's clear the Pokemon somehow came into existence after the sketch, as it's explained that the drawing came from the imagination of one of the explorers. And I know we just talked about how Iron Leaves never moves, but when it does so in such an unnatural hop that realistically could not exist. Almost as if the movement were pulled straight from pop culture, like Disney merry-go-rounds or the gazelle from the Circle of Life. It's like whatever's creating these Paradox Pokemon is doing so from the point of view of someone who doesn't understand our culture. Like, they technically got the baselines right, but they all feel so uncanny and strange. Even more so for the 2 newest ones. Like, what's going on here?
Hush now, this isn't the video to be answering that. This one is. Whenever it's made, anyway.
Oh, okay.
Regardless, Iron Leaves is like an AI animatronic and seems like it could be the steed of Iron Valiant. I mean, they're shaped too perfectly for that, and look so similar, but then again, all of these Violet Paradox Pokemon look kind of similar.
What's the deal with that anyway? I know that we just spent eons explaining how they all could be considered different types of robots, but they all look pretty much the same with those LED eyes and the weird starry goop floating around their bodies. Them all having the exact same unpainted shiny look, all having the same ability, and their names all starting with Iron. I mean, I get that Screamtail isn't a particularly clever name, but Iron Treads? Iron Hands? Iron Valiant? Surely there's other robot names they could have used, right?
Correct, but considering they're so similar, it has to be intentional, right? It's no accident Game Freak designed the future paradoxes to be pieces of a seemingly overarching collective. A singularity, if you will. The technological singularity is a hypothesis where at some point, humanity will reach a level of technological advancements that cannot be reversed. Technology advances so rapidly, it vastly overshadows the entirety of human intelligence. Famous mathematician John von Neumann describes such a possibility as approaching some essential point in the history of the race, beyond which human affairs, as we know, could not continue. Media takes this in all sorts of different directions. But for our purposes here, think about the example of Skynet, the AI that powers the Terminator. It's just one representation of what the singularity could look like. When a human tries to power it off, it sets off a nuclear attack referred to as Judgment Day. Ultron is another interpretation of this event, and here too, all of the robots look similar. The Ultron AI deemed this appearance would be the most optimal representation of its physical form, given its available resources, and therefore had no more need for advancements. There are countless examples of this idea in this context. Mass Effect's Reapers, Gurren Lagann's Anti-Spirals, Doctor Who's Cybermen originally, and Pokémon Violet is perhaps another representation of this event, and quite a unique example at that. What happens when the point of no return comes early and invades the present?
Oh, you can leave this part to me. I used to do theories myself. And that leaves only one question. What is the Pokémon singularity specifically? It can't be the hardware components, because no matter how similar they all look, there's just no way Iron Bundle is as durable as Iron Thorns. But what's the one thing they do all share? It's that starry energy. Over billions of years, the material the Pokémon are made of can change as more resources become available, but that liquid never alters. It's reached the point of perfection. It's the only element on the box art besides Miraidon itself, and it even hints at a future. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Pokémon singularity, the substance destined to hijack all Pokémon of the future into its absolute supremacy. Of course, we don't know what this substance is or what it is made of, but whatever it is, it has to be some sort of supercharged AI juice, or plasma, or secret sixth form of matter. Perhaps it's even that mysterious infinity energy occasionally mentioned in Pokémon, only now it's been advanced by sparkly nanomachines. Perhaps that's why each of these Pokémon has to be called Iron something, or IRON, right? Suddenly being called IRON Hands or IRON Bundle makes a lot more sense, since most of the Paradox Pokémon aren't steel type to begin with, let alone a metal as primitive as iron. So what does it stand for? Well, obviously we have no way of knowing, but I'd like to dub it Interstellar Reinforced Omnipotent Nectar.
We call it Ice Rainbow Ounce Knot.
That honestly works too. Or at least it might be something like that.
But how does that account for their names in other languages?
To be honest, Pokemon will probably never give us a straight answer on this regardless, but who knows? DLC's right around the corner and it might surprise us. Maybe they aren't really from the future at all, and are really just manifested from Professor Tudo's ideas of what the future would look like. And the time machine is really just a reality-bending crystal device similar to the reality-bending crystals that the Unknown make. Either way, I'm not too concerned with a technological takeover in my lifetime when our AIs are still learning how to count fingers and toes. And I think that just about wraps up the Violet paradoxes. Which one's your favorite? Let me know down below.
Hey, what you doing with hand?
Oh, sorry, force of habit. A while ago I lost my coffee mug in a weird flash of light, and I just haven't been able to find it since.
Must be these nasty 5G vaccines.
Yeah, I try not to think about it too much. I'll just buy a new one.
Well, it's this cup, right? I just went back to when you said you lost it and grabbed it for you.
Oh, that's very convenient. Thank you.
You fool! Do you not understand the cataclysm you've just brought on? A time paradox will surely occur, locking us in an infinitely repeating cycle.
I mess with time all the time, and everything's fine. You need to stop watching conspiracy videos.
Yeah, nothing's happening, so I guess we're fine.
Yep, as long as nobody refreshes the page and rewatches this entire video in its entirety, we'll be fine.